Primary sources are documents that genealogists strive to find because they are created contemporaneously with a given event. But that doesn't always mean they're correct. You have to understand how the document is created, by whom, and for what purpose to assess the accuracy of its genealogical information. In this video, I'm looking at U.S. death certificates, which are recorded and certified shortly after someone's death. I'm Mike O'Neill, and I'm a big data professional and amateur genealogist who has made tons of mistakes since I picked up genealogy as a hobby in 2011. I want to help you avoid some of my mistakes. Before we get started, let's talk about why death certificates were created. Initially, it was to track public health issues, not to help you identify your ancestors. Later, they became legal documents as well, used for probate, insurance, and other reasons. Death certificates, however, were never created for genealogy. Death records in the US are pretty spotty prior to the early 1900s. The Massachusetts Bay Colony started civil registration of deaths in 1632, but by 1851, only 7 states were systematically recording deaths. In 1880, the country began to systematically collect causes of death purely for public health reasons. It wasn't until the Census Bureau created a standard death registration form in the late 1890s that you started seeing a lot of death certificates with genealogical value beyond location, date, and cause of death. By 1910, death certificates in the US are pretty consistent in terms of format and content, and there were only a few places that weren't collecting them. Despite being legal documents, you can't trust every fact on a death certificate. Now remember, it's not really a document as much as it is a conversation. And in this case, the conversation is a three-way with a medical professional, an undertaker, and a reporter. That third person typically being a family member. Anyway, all three contribute to different parts of the document. Let me give you an example. When my father passed away in 2005, the gentleman running the Kimball Funeral Home took care of everything, including filling out my father's death certificate. They were responsible for parts of it, noting that he was cremated. They partnered with his doctor to note his date and cause of death. And about 3 hours after my dad died, when my mother and I were still in shock from watching him take his last breaths, we were asked where he was born, who his parents were, and whether he had any aliases. We didn't have to present any documents to back any of that up either. It was completely our word. In short, the part of the death certificate which notes cause of death, place of burial, and place of death tends to be hard fact. The portion with genealogical information, such as parents, date of birth, and place of birth, that's completely reliant on the family member who was present when the certificate was filled out. What does that mean? Well, it really depends on the family member. Did they know? Were they guessing? Were they under stress because a loved one had just passed away? Consider my father's grandfather, Patrick Valentine O'Neill. His wife, Mary Haggerty O'Neill, reported his death, including a birth date of Valentine's Day, 1877. In fact, Patrick was born on February 8, 1877, not the 14th of February. Now, he was baptized on the 13th of February, a day before St. Valentine's Day. His wife had the facts wrong. Now, that's not really a big deal, is it? It's just a few days off. And maybe Patrick's middle name played a part in that he remembered his parents telling him about being named after St. Valentine because he was born around that date. Now, let's take a more fun one. Mary Haggerty O'Neill's aunt, Catherine Twohy. When she passed away on 12 January 1922, her son Henry reported that she was born on 7 February 1850 to George Haggerty and Catherine Merriman. Henry had all of the details correct there, except for his maternal grandmother's surname. It was Gallagher, not Merriman. I have a 7 November 1875 marriage record from the Philadelphia Archdiocese of Edward Twohy and Catherine Haggerty, the daughter of George Haggerty and Catherine Gallagher. I also have a 7 February 1850 baptismal record for Catherine, the daughter of George Haggerty and Catherine Gallagher. That's the birth date on Catherine's death certificate. Let's try to get into Henry's state of mind. His mother had died in the middle of the night of pneumonia at around 1:50 a.m. He was probably exhausted because he'd been up most of the night, and Well, he mixed up his maternal grandparents, George Haggerty and Catherine Gallagher, with his paternal grandparents, Edward Twohy and Mary Merriman. Let's take another close look at Catherine's death certificate. The name Edward was scribbled out and replaced with George Haggerty. When you look at a US death certificate, pay very close attention to the family member who reported the death. Who were they? What was their state of mind that day? If you have a close relative reporting the death, the parents and date and place of birth are probably correct. But if something on the certificate just doesn't make sense, it could be the result of someone who's having a very bad day. Thanks for watching my video. If you've got any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments.